What up, peeps? It's your super sketch artist Antonio back, and this time I am reviewing the new and simply amazing the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man TV show out now on Disney Plus. The first two episodes were aired with the premiere, and I have to say this is easily one of my favorite animated things that have come out just by those first two episodes. So let's get into it. First things first, rest in peace and shout out to Steve Ditko, one of the co-creators and one of the major creators, if you really being honest about it, of Spider-Man. Yes, Stan Lee, of course, rest in peace to him. He's amazing. Steve Ditko. When it comes down to the creation of the character, it's Steve Ditko's art that created Spider-Man. It's Steve Ditko's nuance and his panel layout and all these different things that set the standard for this character that has become iconic and is practically my favorite fictional character that's ever been created. I love Spider-Man as a kid, still love him as a bigger adult. So with that being the case, shout out to Steve Ditko. The art style, first and foremost, as an artist, that's the first thing I look for in any animated thing is what does the art style look like. That's why I don't watch certain shows, because the art style is a turn off. This art style is definitely very simplified. It's very reminiscent of those, not only that art style, but I love that it is a show that's new. And when you look at that as compared to, you look at this show compared to X-Men 97, you can see the differences in those art styles. It's not a lot of cell shading or anything like that. So I really love how colorful and bold these colors are in this whole world. So they start off, by really mimicking what the MCU was. Just that they show Queens, of course, where Spidey's from. They show Midtown High School, which is where he wants to go. And immediately you have the arrival of what looks to be a Venom symbiote or creature that's covered with a symbiote. It's not necessarily like a humanoid form, so it doesn't look like the general things that we see when we see the symbiotes. So that's cool. And then we see the arrival of Doctor Strange. And this Doctor Strange looks exactly how Doctor Strange generally looks in the comics. So I'm already a big fan of that. I love when they first showed Doctor Strange originally in the MCU, he had the gloves on, generally like how he usually does. And that's what he does. He wears his gloves. So to see him with the gloves on, to see him look so crisp, like again, to see him using the crimson bands of Sidorak on the symbiote, I was like, yes, because we've seen that in the MCU, of course. But to see it animated, it was great. To see that fight with him using all of his magic, him using, the things that, again, if you're a Doctor Strange fan, like I am, if you're a reader of the comics, like I am, Doctor Strange has gotten so many buffs and power-ups, and he's just been OP since pretty much creation. Again, these are characters that were created around the time, and yeah, Steve Ditko had he drew some Doctor Strange stuff too. So again, I like that the first two characters that you really kind of see are two Steve Ditko type of characters. I absolutely love it. This show has so much possibilities. It has so much. What you really find out in this time is that Peter's origin is way different. Yes, he's still smart. Yes, he's still a genius. At the same time, he no longer does the thing that you usually see, which is he goes to a lab and then the spider just kind of falls on him. This time, the spider actually comes from this portal that opens up with the symbiote and with Doctor Strange. So I love that the origin is different. The origin, essentially we don't need to see what the origin is, but I like that the origin was done really quick. It wasn't a long scene that kind of takes your, it takes the action down. They actually did it during an action scene and a little bit after the action scene. First off, this series is chock full of guest stars. And if this is going to be what is throughout the whole series, which if you look at the director or the writer, the head writer, he said that there's at least two in every episode, like guest stars. So I was like, okay. And again, we got to see Doctor Strange. We got to see a little mini Iron Man. We even got to see some Captain America, a shot of Captain America that was so clean. We'll get to that in a second. But just the first person that Peter interacts with is Nico Minoru. So Nico is from the Runaways. So if you ever watched that show, The Runaways, and you enjoyed it, watch this show. Nico's on there. She's drawn beautifully. Again, going back to the art style of all the different races and creeds of people in this show. Mwah, chef's kiss. OMG. You have someone like Nico who looks exactly, like an Asian woman. You have Lonnie Lincoln. And if you don't know who Lonnie Lincoln is, go Google his name and you'll see who he who he is, or who he possibly is going to become, which I think they've already set that up. We'll talk about that in a second as well. You see Pearl, who, again, if you play Marvel Snap, you know who that character is. You see the Professor Bentley, who, again, if you research his name, you'll know exactly who all these characters are. Amadeus Cho. Everyone else, these characters were just amazing to see them as the background characters, because just like, say, like a Batman, Spider-Man's mythos is rich with good background characters. So seeing all these background characters actually mean something, and not just be characters that are just throwaways, but characters that actually mean something in the Spider-Man mythos is great to see. So I really, really love that. Loved all the cameos of the different characters, and knowing that they're going to be actual characters in it, it's great. So let's talk about more about those characters. First and foremost, the Osborns are black. And to touch on it very quickly, if you've noticed what has been going on, and you talked about the statement that the Spider-Man voice actor made about the show not being woke or anything like that, thank you, Disney, for making this depiction of New York be exactly what I, who have been a New York resident for like about 10 years now, and moved to New York to do art full time, it looks exactly like how these streets of New York look. When I ride the train, it looks like, well, there's a kid on the train and there's some other people on the train. I love that Lonnie is this big, star quarterback, and he's got to go all the way back home, and he goes where? Into Harlem. As soon as he came out that train station, is 125th. I was like, well, I know exactly where you at, bro. I know exactly where you at. Seeing the start of what is probably going to be his character arc, knowing that his family is struggling, and knowing who he is destined to become, at least in the comics, who he's destined to become. Who knows if he still becomes that character here? Who knows what kind of relationship him and Peter will end up having? Him and Pearl will end up, or even Nico. Who knows if all of these characters, even a character like Amadeus Cho, who shows up and Norman recruits him instead of Iron Man recruiting Peter essentially into an advanced kind of like schooling or into this big building. It's actually Norman Osborn, and I love that because it shows that Peter again is smart, and part of Spider-Man is showing Peter's actual intelligence, not just his powers but his actual intelligence, which is why I'm glad that the Tom Holland Spidey and the Andrew Garfield Spidey really honed in on the fact that, oh, I'm a genius, pretty much. Like, I'm a genius as a kid. And I love that they put him around other genius kids in the MCU right off the break. Like, episode 2, he's right around geniuses. He's no longer just around regular kids. He's around geniuses. And I love that this version of Peter necessarily isn't the, like, I'm getting bullied, I'm getting picked on type of a guy. He does have, since he's smart, he ends up gaining popularity through being attached to Lonnie. And they break that stereotype as well of Lonnie being this big dumb jock and make him into someone who actually wants a fallback. Like so many NFL players have said and done. And if you actually check a lot of NFL players, they're actually super intelligent people that have degrees in something that has nothing to do with football, just as a backup, because as we all know, anyone who watches any kind of sports knows that you can get hurt in the drop of a hat and then your career is over, even at the local or professional level. So again, I love what we've seen from the show so far. I love the diversity in everything, changing the Lizard's character, Kurt Connors, into Carla Connors, and making it not only a woman but a woman of color, drawing her perfectly, having her actually have good personality just in the small scenes that she got already. It's just so good. Norman always has an air of power, but it just feels different this time, and I love it. I can't wait to see what these characters actually being black and other like people of color, what that like how those stories get told. I know we live in this world where woke is a bad thing, which is if you're using the word woke as a bad thing, you're not woke and you don't know anything about what the origins of that statement. You're using it completely wrong, and I love that um, for the voice actor to say the statement that he said, and then that shows he only got his own script and only did his own lines for Spidey, and he didn't read anything else because everything else is the exact opposite of what he said that it wasn't going to be. This is a very woke show. This is a diverse show. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's 2025. Again, if you set it in New York, there's no way that you're just going to be walking around like big occupied places of New York and not see black and brown people and Asian people and Indian people and all these types of people who reside in this amazing, blustering, like just place, melting pot. It is called a melting pot for a reason. So I absolutely love that. Again, seeing Nico just lets me know that we could see even more characters. I know I've seen previews of Daredevil and stuff like that, so I can't wait for that. That's got me super excited. But knowing that Disney took and went out on a limb and put these characters that, again, the Wizard, if you don't know who the Wizard is, then you're like, well, if you don't, he's not a A or B list character. If you really don't even know who, Kurt Connors is, if you only know the big, like maybe 2 or 3 Spidey villains, you know who the Lizard is, even though if you might have watched the movies or if you might have seen the show and stuff like that. But not every Spider-Man fan knows all of his main rogues gallery. But seeing a character say like a Amadeus Cho, that leads to so much that can happen in such a small period of time, because we know that the Avengers are in this universe. We know at least we see Iron Man and Captain America. And knowing that someone like Norman Osborn, he has a picture in his office with him and Captain America, which looks clean as hell, by the way. But knowing that he has that picture, shows that he has ties to the superhero community already. And if you look at what happens at the end of the second episode of this show, you know that he wants to now continue that reach that he has. And I mean, he surrounded himself with nothing but superhuman potential characters as young people, which I think is just absolutely hilarious. Again, it's such a cool thing to see this show. It's always a cool thing to see Spider-Man swinging. So seeing Spider-Man's costume and seeing that what he's thinking, he's keeping his web fluid and he's keeping that kind of hydraulics to shoot it out and everything like that. Seeing the structure of how his mind works, it's great to see, because we know it's not going to stay like that. We know eventually he's going to get into a fight where his big clunkiness of his suit right now is going to be a detriment. Because again, if I see that you shoot something out of something, all I'm going to do is shoot that thing so you no longer can shoot me. And that's exactly what is probably going to happen to Peter. He got into one fight against someone who has, quote unquote, that's more than like a regular human being that has nothing to really fight against him. And he did really well. They fought in a pet store, which gave me vibes of the old Pee Wee Herman, where he was trying to save all the animals from fire and he wouldn't get the snakes, which was hilarious. But seeing Peter just, jump around, seeing Spidey be Spidey, seeing him fight in the alleyway, I was cheesing from ear to ear because that's Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man. Spidey's gonna make fun of you and beat you up and embarrass you. Spidey wants to embarrass you. He wants to embarrass you out of crime. But also to get later on in the second episode to see Spidey give a woman who was down on her luck a break. Again, with the economy being the way that it is in the real world, you can see a lot of people have, like, the petty crimes and the small crimes have had an uptick. So if we did have heroes like Spider-Man, you would probably see him trying to set people on the straight and narrow. So to be able to see it in the show, I love it, because that's what being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is all about. It is being friendly to your neighbor, it is loving your neighbor, even if they are doing something that's wrong, even if they essentially are your enemy, not wanting to hurt them, not wanting to beat them up, wanting them to just kind of, hey man, leave it alone. Just leave this person alone. Leave this thing alone. Why are you doing this? Just go about your way. That's Spider-Man. That's the Spider-Man way. I know personally for myself, being who I am, and that saying, with great power comes great responsibility. It's one of those things that has helped shape and change my life as well, because I realize the power that I have. I hope that you realize the power that you have and the responsibility that comes with it. And Spider-Man, again, is a great example of that, because he really could be just taking folks out with one punch, and he chooses not to. It's the same thing as Superman. Superman has all this godly power, and he chooses to do right with it. And Spider-Man chooses to do it on a local level, not just want to go right to the Avengers, but do it on a local level. Be that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So again, overall, I just have to say I'm excited for what this show is. I'm excited for what this show has to offer. I'm excited to see who else pops up. Again, the geek in me, all the Easter eggs, and that's another thing. Like the opening of this series. Oh my gosh! Like, as much as I love the original Spider-Man, kind of song, I like that they redid the song. All the little Easter eggs that you see, the different costumes and stuff like that. Again, a nerd like myself, I absolutely love to see it. And I hope that if you aren't a comic reader, you are then, curious to see where all these little Easter eggs come from, and do a little bit of reading for yourself, because Spider-Man does have a rich history, and he does have, like every comic book character, he has some great high highs and he has some very low lows. But overall, I really, really enjoy all the Easter eggs that we've seen, all the little droplets, all the little, like, wink and nods to the actual fans. I always say, anytime you see Spider-Man swinging, it's a wink and a nod to the fans. If you play the Insomnia Spider-Man game, when you see him web swinging around, you love that. And again, this is young Peter doing it, so he's not perfect. He's only maybe like 6 months into it. I absolutely love that. So I again, if you're on the fence about seeing it, if you think, oh, it's going to be woke, or I don't like that, give it a try. Give the show a try. I would hope that you would enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed it. I can't wait to see the next episodes. They already have a calendar for when the episodes are coming out. The next episode, I think, comes out next week, and I'm super excited for it. It's going to be this series is going to be great. So it's going to be amazing. Shout out to my friend Adrian, who's no longer here. This was her shirt. So whenever you see me do these reviews, I'm probably going to have this shirt on, because she would have loved this series. She would have loved it. So shout out to you, Adrian. Rest in peace to you. Her and my friend Tom were big comic book fans, and I miss them, and I wish that they were here to be able to enjoy this stuff. So again, if you get the chance to, take some time, watch it. But with that being the case, these are my sketchy thoughts about this show. This is the first 2 episodes of this Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I can't wait to see the rest. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Of course, like, share, subscribe. All the social media things, you can find me on antonio.clark.art on all the social medias. Even though the social media landscape is crazy right now, you can find me on there. And I will be making weekly videos and reviews. If you stay a little bit longer, I will patch one of my videos drawing the new Spider-Man, because as soon as I saw it, I had to start drawing. I saw a video of him fighting the Scorpion, and I was like, ooh, let me draw him fighting the Scorpion. So if you stay a little bit longer, you will see the sketch that I did of him fighting the Scorpion. So with that being the case, be good to yourself, be good to others, go be super.